Should I be responsible to pay for diagnostic? What do you think, Dave?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. If you're looking for an accurate situation on your automobile, the guesswork's gone. 1980, it all changed. First computer went in a car.
Well, when I called Dave on Wednesday, as I was preparing for the show, I said, hey, what do you want to talk about? It's your show. What do you want to talk about? He said, I want to talk about technology. And the thing is, diagnostic is where the technology has changed. And we talk on the show about how the games have changed. So what your grandpa used to tell you about how to fix a car, it's not relevant anymore. Other than it still has a piston. Some of them don't have a piston in the engine. But and they still have a lot of the same concept, but the game has changed, and it really comes to the diagnostic tools. When we plug into a car, we're talking to the car, and we've talked in shows past about the programming of the car. See, the best way not to spend money uselessly on your car is to pay for diagnostic. Now, there are shops, good friends of mine, they do it this way. They'll check out the car, they'll diagnose it, and when they call to sell the job to the customer, they say, well, you're going to need this, that, and the other, and they say, will you waive the diagnostic fee? Some of them say yes. I mean, it's a question you can certainly ask, but the one thing for the shops that are cutting edge and buying the technology to do a great job and honestly doing a great diagnostic where there is no guesswork, they do need to be paid. It would be no different than going to a doctor's office and him saying, we need to take some x-rays to see what's going on. You got to pay for the x-rays. We can't skip them just because you get a cast. And so I don't want to, I see so much angst for people over this diagnostic charge, and the tendency is not to want to pay it because it feels frustrating. But the guys that are hanging on and charging the bill a lot of times, they spend a lot of due diligence time to get it right for you the first time because you're going to hold us responsible for it. So it's worth paying. Am I wrong here, Dave?
I don't think so. I think what the consumer has to understand today, that a professional organization that has dedicated itself to providing quality diagnostics and automotive repair with integrity and honesty is making tremendous investments in tooling technology. Not only do you have to have a qualified technician that's committed himself to the industry through his training, his investment in his tools, it's just like our facility has just made a purchase where we now have all original equipment, diagnostic equipment, and that through 9 different manufacturers is about a 6-figure investment. But what it did show us was the pre-purchase inspection we did on the BMW. The gentleman had been to several facilities, tire facilities, this and that, tire pressure sensors on. And nobody could get it off, wanting to sell tire pressure sensors. And in reality, what was wrong with the car is BMW had issued a patch to the software system that circumvented the short in the software, which turned the light off. And all it was just like you do on Microsoft. We have an update available. Click.
Done deal.
Solved.
Well, when he came into the studio this morning, he had a big smile on his face, and he had this article that was written 8 years ago, and it was written by, there's a big aftermarket parts industry group, which is going to include a lot of our vendors that we buy parts from. And they made a lot of predictions about where the industry is going, and I thought they were interesting. It was starting to become that 30% of their aftermarket parts were going to dealerships. So, and that was one of the big changes. And one of the other points they made in there is that really only about half of the independent auto shops are computerized. And I don't know how I would quite digest that, but their big prediction was that the future for independent repair was going to be working on the foreign cars, the Hondas, the Toyotas, and their point was that you have a lot more GM dealerships than you do Toyota dealerships. And so there's going to be more need for service outside of a dealership.
Oh, that's absolutely true. The Asian manufacturers do not have the service-based capacity to service the vehicles that they're selling. So what does that create for the consumer? They've got to find an independent repair facility that's qualified, that understands the technology and the design of the vehicle, and be able to deliver that to them.
Right. So with the technology, when you are working with an independent repair shop, and there's a lot of independents, so I would put absolutely against any dealership any of the week, day of the week. There's good dealerships doing good service. There's also good independents doing good service. The one thing that I like about the independents is that you're only a step away from the owner when there is an issue. It's not, you got to talk to him, then you got to talk to him, then you got to talk to his manager, then you got to talk to his manager. All you want to do is get your car fixed. And you've got an issue and you've got a problem. The one thing I will favor on the independents, and I'm a little biased because I'm independent, and I don't want to not fair to the dealership guys because there's great guys in the dealership, but we like that local hometown feel where you can go talk to the owner any day you want.
Well, let me give you an example of a vehicle without technology that an owner on site was able to solve for a consumer. He'd spent $1,500 getting his truck repaired, been back 5 times, frustrated, confused, had the vehicle towed to us, and finally said, "Don't even call me with a price, just fix my truck." And reality was, the repair was done improperly, diagnosed improperly, but yet every time this consumer tried to get back to get what was justly his, which was a car repaired properly, he met a wall because it was a club-owned organization that they couldn't find any management to solve the problem, and finally he just surrendered.
And to our initial point about diagnostic, that's the one thing that auto shops, it's probably the hardest part of it, is the diagnostic. Because nuts and bolts are just nuts and bolts. Take one out, take another one out, take the water pump off, bolt it back in. That's just nuts and bolts. And a lot of people can do that, nuts and bolts. But when it actually comes out to accurately diagnosing the car, and this is my point, is, and I just had this discussion with somebody the other day. They said, "Dave, how much for a transmission on this particular car?" And I said, "What's wrong with it?" They said, "How much?" This is someone in my industry. And they said, "What's wrong with it?" And what he was describing to me did not fit needing another transmission. So I argued with him. He finally brought me the car. And when I got the car, he was so far off, he would have made a $3,500 mistake with a customer. So that's where the diagnostic is going to save you the most money, getting an accurate diagnostic. But when we come in with anxiety, I really don't want to pay for that. What kind of works on the psyche of the shop? Because we don't want to charge you for it either. We want to be everybody's friend. We want everybody to like us. So we don't want to have to charge you the diagnostic. It's no fun to charge people money. We want to be everybody's buddy. But in order to be financially responsible and to buy those tools and to be in business next year and the year after and all those things, we got to do it. So don't be afraid to pay for it.
Oh, that's absolutely true. You're either going to get a facility that will diagnose your problem or they'll do car repair by experimentation. I think this is wrong. Oh, no, well, let's try this. Right. I think everyone's heard a horror story of that nature, Dave.
We tried this and we tried that and we tried the other. Well, this guy, when he was calling me on the transmission, he said, "Dave, I don't want to charge this lady diagnostic. I've known her for years. She's going to fight me on it, And that was his anxiety. He didn't want to charge her for that, but it was going to save her a lot of money in the long run. So we have to be disciplined. And up for this segment, we're going to go with Brian. It looks like he's got a 2013 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Go ahead, Brian. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yeah, hi. I have a 2013 Jeep Grand Cherokee that's had various electrical issues since I've had it. It has less than 3,000 miles on it. Since I've had it, they've replaced the battery, alternator, range, motion, transmission sensor. And to make a long story short, what they found out the cause of all these problems was a ground wire that was loose. So my question is, what kind of other damage could have been done to the new vehicle with that ground wire not being properly secured or connected?
I'm not thinking we've got a bunch of damage, but ground wire specifically probably more than likely referred to the computer getting good ground. The computer does a lot of signals based off of ground connection, and maybe the alternator. The computer will control the alternator, tell it when to apply load, when not to apply load. They may have replaced a battery, thinking we had a battery issue. The range sensor on the side of the transmission will act funky if it doesn't have good voltage or has bad ground. What's your thoughts, Dave?
I would venture to say that probably not one of those components was faulty, that the ground issue was the problem and that it took the technician the time to find it. There was missed signals going to those different components. We had the same situation the other day. Bad negative battery cable. Everybody wanted to replace alternator, wanted to replace the voltage regulator and battery. And once we secured the cable, charged the system, everything was good to go.
Well, I think this is our point of diagnostic, Brian, is that really the diagnosis was bad ground. Bad ground maybe at the battery cable, bad ground for the computer, caused them to replace an alternator that didn't need to be replaced, caused them to replace a transmission range sensor that didn't need to be replaced. And all those pieces got replaced because of diagnostic. And the one thing we got to clear up here for everybody is that we all assume that auto repair is easy. And it's not. It's tougher than it's ever been. Here you got a brand new vehicle. It's in the factory dealership with all the latest technology, and yet these guys were wrong on a couple of pieces, and time will tell if the ground was really the fix, but you've got, just right off the bat, the thing I think it has at least a 3 or 36,000 mile warranty. I don't think any damage was done, so you don't need to, I would just put that out of your mind for sure. And anyway, but to the point of diagnostic. Now, if you were paying for those repairs and they didn't fix it and you had to go back, you would have said, well, did I really need the alternator? Well, did I really need the transmission range switch? And so on. So thanks for the call, Brian. Let's go with Chris. It looks like he's an AJ with an aftermarket scanner question. Go ahead, Chris. You are on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Good morning, gentlemen. I guess I've been privileged. I was GM world-class master technician for 18 years with General Motors, and I got hooked on the Tech 2. I've now moved into the independent world, and I'm trying to decide on a good aftermarket scanner that will do what I need it to do for bidirectional, all kinds of different things like that. What kind of suggestions do you have?
Oh, man, you just hit on a topic that is a topic of every time you get 5 shop owners in a room. What'd you buy? What'd it do for you? Is it working? Do you like it? So, that's an ongoing question as far as what aftermarket scanners. I happen to own a Tech 2, and Dave's over there putting his finger up. He's got some input. What do you got, Dave?
Well, Chris, let me just give you my experience. Okay. Just recently, we went out and tried to ask the same question to the industry that you're asking me today. Mark Warren, who happens to be the lead trainer for WorldPack, has 65 instructors throughout U.S. and Canada. And I asked that same question to Mark Warren, and he said, in the reality of the new world today with the technology, you need to purchase factory OE diagnostic equipment.
So for Chris here, though, probably all around, if you're looking at a scanner, and I would say Dave's exactly right, is that you really need the OE scanner. So the one nice thing about the Bumper to Bumper radio network is I don't have to afford all the OE scanners. I just got to know guys like Dave, and I can say, hey, Dave, you think I can borrow that scanner you just spent a bunch of money on? And Dave will gladly say yes, right, Dave?
Oh, absolutely.
For sure. But we have, a lot of my guys will have a Snap-on scanner. That's one of the parts companies, and it's good at one kind of vehicle, not necessarily as good at the next, but it just depends on what you're working at. So when we make a decision to purchase scanners, we look at how many times am I working on a Honda, how many times am I working on a Toyota, what does this one fit for this or that or whatever it may be. But, yeah, the bidirectional controls are a big deal. And for you people who are listening, you say, what the heck are bidirectional controls? Is that you can get a scanner that you plug into the car, and it's much like the one at the Quickie Acme Auto Parts. They plug in, and it tells you some diagnostic trouble codes, but you cannot command the car to do anything. It just reads. It's just a one-way communication. Bidirectional control is where we actually tell the car, all right, we think we got a throttle position sensor code or something like that. We can actually go in and command something to happen, an electric motor to actuate, a solenoid to turn on. We're telling the car what to do versus the car just telling us what it thinks is going on. So that'd probably be the best way as a consumer to understand. But good luck on that. That's the million-dollar question, is which scanner is best all around. So thanks, Chris. Let's go with Alan on 04 Toyota Sequoia. Go ahead, Alan. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey, how you fellas doing?
Good.
Good.
Good. I have a 2004 Toyota Sequoia that I've owned since I purchased it new. And basically the first couple sets of brakes lasted me each about 55,000 miles. So I put a new set on at about 110. I'm at about 130,000 now, so 20 miles into the third set. What I'm getting is every now and then I'll get a shimmy when I hit the brakes. The dashboard lights up like a Christmas tree with the VSC control, the track, the stabilization, the brake light comes on. If I turn the vehicle off and turn it back on, those lights go away, and the problem will go away, and I may not have the problem for another week and a half. And then I'll have it 2 days later. I took it in to one dealer. They said it was the brakes that needed to be replaced. I just can't believe that after the first two sets lasted 55,000 miles, that the third set would only last about less than half of that. Have you guys ever experienced this kind of problem? And does the diagnosis sound correct that the brakes need to be replaced after 22,000 miles?
Well, the pulsation issue. Now, when you've been doing the brake replacements at 55,000, 110,000, were you doing those, or were the rotors being machined at that point?
No, I was taking them to the dealer, and I think after the second one, the rotors were machined.
Okay. So the rotors always need to be machined. That makes a significant difference. When you're hitting the brake and you get that pulsation, that is typical of a warped rotor, or we can have a hub bearing that's going bad, can also cause a pulsation, those type of things. When the vehicle stability light comes on, that's telling me, it's the check engine light, the vehicle stability light, all those things come on together, and it scares you. You're like, what the heck is going on? And then when you shut the key off, it may all go back out until the next time it sees the same issue. So the vehicle stability control, I think that's tied into the ABS. Am I not wrong, Dave?
That's correct, but I also wonder what quality of pad we're putting on that vehicle.
That certainly does make a difference, is the quality of the pad. But as far as those lights coming on, we could have a bad ABS sensor throwing those lights. So up for this segment, we're going to go with Georgina. Looks like she's got a 1997 Mercury Villager. Go ahead. You are on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Thank you for taking my call. I have a 97 Mercury Villager, and in the past 10 months, we bought it brand new, but in the past 10 months, I've been sinking a lot of money into this. Right now, I think I have a transmission problem, and I heard your show talk about transmission, so I thought I'd call in. Did you want me to tell you my symptoms?
Tell me how many miles you got on it, Georgina, and then tell me your symptoms.
217444.
217,444 miles?
Yes.
You on the original transmission?
Yes.
You are living right, Georgina. What do you got going on?
Well, the transmission right now, I think it's a transmission, but I'm not a mechanic. I've been to several mechanics, and I really don't like the way they've treated me, so I'm on my fourth mechanic. He seems to be okay. He's trying different things, but the reason I think it's a transmission is because I will be driving along, and as I pick up speed, the car doesn't go to the next level. It's a automatic transmission, but it doesn't go to the next level smoothly. It jumps, it lurches forward, and if I give it too much gas to get it going, it jumps out. Now, it's already done that to me twice, where it's jumped out of the transmission, and the engine is good, everything is good, there's no light on, nothing's going on, but the car won't move anywhere if I give it gas. So it's done it to me twice. I had to be towed. What the mechanic told me, the recent mechanic I have told me, was to try to ease up on it, which I'm doing, and then keep it in something called overdrive.
When, Georgina, I'm going to paint a picture here for you. I'm at a stoplight. The light is red. I got my foot on the brake. The light turns green. I take my foot off the brake, and I move over to the gas pedal, and I give it gas. And I'm accelerating 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 miles an hour. What point do you feel something's abnormal? Let's just say a normal acceleration.
Right now, I'm going from 0 to maybe 10 because I'm easing in on the gas so it doesn't pop out. And then I have to wait until the next gear kicks in so that I can then press it again and go to the next one. People behind me on the freeway are not happy campers, let me tell you.
Oh, I bet they're not. So, especially with my road rage issues. No, I'm kidding. It's not me. It's not me. I just would stop and give you a card. But it's going to be hard for me to determine what you got going on. It does sound like the transmission may be starting to get weak, but I never just jump to that gun because there's so much outside. The transmission is computer controlled. Do we have another issue causing it not to be controlled right? So it doesn't have to be guesswork. There's no guesswork here. When somebody's truly diagnosing this thing, they're not going to say, do this or do that. They're going to say, here's the test that we've run, here's the results that we got, and here is what the problems are. So you don't have to wonder if you have the right answer if someone is truly going to do a diagnostic on it. So,
and the good thing about your issue, it sounds like it's very consistent. So someone with the proper technology that can get in the vehicle with you, go on a test drive, come back and dispatch that out to a technician or and take the proper tool, should be able to give you an accurate estimate of what it'll take to repair the car very quickly.
Let's go with Mike in Phoenix on a 2005 Nissan Titan. Go ahead, Mike. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey, what a great show. I came up here from Safford, Arizona to take somebody to the airport, and I found your show. It's really
Thanks.
good.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, my Nissan Titan I bought about a year ago from a friend of mine, and it's got incredible power. Believe me, it's got whiplash power. I wasn't used to it when I take off. But it also has an exhaust leak, and I wonder, is that going to get worse? Is it something I really should go fix? You know what I mean? It has great power. I go up the mountains, it's fine, and I bought it because I was a scout leader and family man, but I haven't had any troubles with it, but you could just hear, as you're going along, and I'd be concerned.
Does it change from hot to cold? So when you start it up first thing in the morning, is it worse? And as the day, as the drive goes on, it gets quieter?
I hear it all the time. I don't really hadn't noticed that.
Okay.
It's always there.
How many miles in the car?
150,000. Doesn't use a drop of oil.
Well, that should be relatively easy for someone to identify exactly if it's that consistent, whether it be an exhaust manifold gasket or there could be a gasket, a converter, a pipe, and quite frankly, with that kind of mileage, it could be a hole rusting through on the part of the exhaust.
Yeah, for sure. And do you get it fixed? Is it going to get worse? I would identify what it is. And then once we have the facts of what it is, once we can see maybe a hole in a manifold, or sometimes it's just a matter of a manifold bolt coming loose that just needs to be tightened down. Thanks for the call, Mike. Let's go with, looks like Paul in Tempe on a 1999 Toyota 4Runner. Go ahead, Paul. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Great, thanks. My 4Runner has been great, very few problems, but recently I've noticed that when I'm accelerating, it sort of stutters and it doesn't want to give me all its power. It seems to do it more in the morning, seems to do it at higher speeds, and I'm thinking spark plug, maybe fuel injector, something like that. I just had the timing belt change. I don't know a whole lot about engines, so I thought I would call and get your expertise.
You bet. Is there any check engine lights on at all?
No, not at all.
Okay. Dave?
Could be as simple as cleaning a mass airflow sensor.
It could be, and I think the reason I would, the first thing, a check engine light certainly helps. That means we have a fingerprint in there as far as what the issue may be. But it sounds like we may have a misfire going on, and it may not be bad enough for the computer to be picking up on yet. But is it stuttering when you're just maybe accelerating between 45 and 50 at that kind of lighter acceleration?
It seems to do it at any acceleration, but I guess I just notice it more at higher speeds.
Okay. Well, we definitely don't want to ignore it, and the reason we don't want to ignore it, if the engine's not running right, what happens is, let's just say it's running rich. It's going to throw all that raw fuel back down to the catalytic converter and cause bigger issues. So you don't want to ignore a misfire. You want to get that fixed, as soon as possible. But, it could be a spark plug. It could be a broken down coil. It could be a lot of things going on. So it's just something someone's going to need to get in there and diagnose it. And, sometimes when we're looking at a bad spark plug and we scan and we get a code for a misfire on cylinder number 4, some of the later model vehicles are more capable of telling us where the misfire is coming from. And what we'll do is we'll clear the code and we'll swap a couple of spark plugs and we'll see if the misfire jumps over to the next cylinder. That's a quick test that a guy can do somewhere in his driveway as long as he has a little bit of scanning ability. So thanks so much for the call. I got an email this week, Dave, and I'm trying to pull it up here, that I wanted to talk about, and it's, should I be scared of automotive service coupons? And sometimes you should be, sometimes you shouldn't be. And this is an ongoing debate in our industry. We've got, when a business is brand new and they're trying to get customers, and I'll just take a big chain brand, they're going to pump out the coupons. I mean, they're going to be coupons in every newspaper coming across the mail. And a lot of times it'll be for a serious loss leader. It'll be a $19 oil change. And that's pretty cheap for an oil change when anymore you consider it how much money you have into it in raw costs. So when we look at that, we say that's obviously they're losing money on that deal. And it is a loss leader. Does a loss leader mean I can't trust them?
Well, I think you have to look at the facility, look at the offer, and look at what your intent is. Are you trying to find yourself a service at a reduced price that you're willing to take the chance? If you don't know the facility, you don't have a relationship. Competing on price is a losing proposition a lot of times for the consumer and for the repair facility.
Well, and I think the one thing that I hear is that, I go over to this shop because we've got a relationship and they take care of my car, but their oil change is kind of expensive. So I go over to this shop and, I take it in there, I get their $19 oil change, and they tell me this list of stuff. So some people will go to one shop for an oil change, and some people go to one shop when the car breaks. And I think when you do have a relationship with the shop, I don't know if we're saving any money. We may be saving $20 on an oil change, $25 on an oil change, but somebody else, you wouldn't go to a different pediatrician for your kid every time you took him to the doctor. You'd want the same doctor year after year, every visit. And it's kind of the same thing with a automotive service. You want somebody who knows a car, sees it on a regular basis. They have a service history to look at versus what I would call orphanage, where you're from this shop, that shop. And sometimes we're in a quick hurry, and we do need one of those quick lane type of situations. But it shouldn't be a normal habit.
That's very true. And you also have to understand that your vehicle is probably the second largest investment you're making besides your home. So do you really want someone doing something based on price and opportunity? It's kind of like fishing. Throw enough bait in the water, you're going to catch something.
It's like chumming. Well, there's some great shops that I do know run coupons, and it really has to do with, am I safe with the coupon? It has to do with the integrity of the business. The only reason that democracy works is we're a moral society. And when you've got a moral business, don't be afraid to go in there with a coupon. But not everybody is moral. Up first this segment, we've got, looks like, John in surprise on a 2013 Chevy Sonic, and I'm not sure what a Sonic is. You know what a Sonic is, Dave?
No idea.
All right, John, let us know what a Sonic is. How can we help you?
2013 Sonic, brand new vehicle. They're telling me that it's 4-cylinder. They're telling me that my wife says it runs rough, and they're telling me you got to run premium in it.
Have you looked in the owner's manual to see if it asks that you run premium in that car? And usually when they require premium, right under the gas gauge, it will say premium unleaded only. Do you have either of those two things going on?
Well, like I said, it's my wife's car, and I really haven't noticed that. But I never saw it. I drove it once so far.
Okay. And does it hit, when you drove it, did it feel like it was running rough?
No, because she had premium in it.
Okay. That would be whatever the factory requires in that situation. If a car does say it requires premium, by goodness, you better go with premium gas because that's what it's designed for. And people say, there's 89 octane. Is that what we got? 87, 89, and 92?
Yeah.
87 octane gas burns quicker than 92 octane. Sounds a little counterintuitive, but there's more power in 92 octane and it burns slower than an 87 octane. So when you run a lower grade of fuel, what happens? The car has to compensate, and it has to retard the timing just so it doesn't ping on you. So that's what's going on there. So you want to put in whatever it goes with. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, that's a key factor there of understanding the automobile that you purchase and what the factory is requiring. We have a Range Rover. It's the same thing. You run the lower octane fuel, you end up with poor performance. And I've seen that through 3 or 4 different vehicles that I've owned. So follow the manufacturer's recommendations. And
we didn't ask how many miles are on it, but I know with my Honda Element when I bought it, I think I'm almost to 36,000, so I'm coming up on the end of my factory warranty. And the gas mileage has gotten better over the first 36,000 miles, as well as the engine runs better. So when I got it was kind of tight. It didn't have as much power as it does now. So a little bit of that, we don't ever use the term break in anymore, but it's got to wear in and kind of get to its normal operating. And I believe the program in the computer is designed for the first few thousand miles to run differently than it will run 5,000, 10,000 miles from now. So that's one thing that definitely changes as the car breaks in. So thanks so much for the call, John. Let's go with Doug in Scottsdale on a 2008 Chevrolet Tahoe. Go ahead, Doug. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
Good.
I have a question, and I wanted to share a little bit of information on a fix I kind of stumbled on myself. The Tahoe's it's a four-wheel drive. It's got about 35,000 miles, and I'm just wondering what service I need to have done now. Tranny, diff, front end, rear end, anything.
This thing has only got 35,000 miles on it. It's a 2008.
Yeah.
So we don't drive it a whole bunch, do we?
No, I'm fortunate that I work very close.
I don't know, Dave. Right off the bat, I mean, I'll answer the transmission question. I would say definitely service a transmission. 35,000 miles is not too soon to service a transmission. And I'm gonna recommend you service it with a filter change. We remove the transmission pan, we replace the filter. I don't know that you would need a complete fluid exchange, because if you look at that fluid, it probably looks nice and cherry red. But we just want to make sure the filter is, or the transmission is doing well. When we do a transmission service, we always break open the old filter we replace to see if there's any issues going on, because it just gives us that nice, good feeling about it. Dave, what do you think? 35,000 miles vehicle's 5 years old.
Yeah, the only thing that I really think that you should pay attention to would be a fuel filter. Basically belts, hoses, that type of stuff's going to be fine. Cabin filter if one's required by the dealer, being 5 years old. But always want to change that fuel filter, in my opinion, regardless of what the manufacturer says, at least once a year. You've got electronic pumps. They get clogged. They cause that pump to work harder, and the pump is much more expensive than the filter. And
I'm going to tell you the same thing as far as on that transmission service. They may not recommend that till 50,000 miles, but the one thing I tell people, we replace transmissions 4-to-1 over engines. Engines aren't failing, but transmissions are. Yet we go down and get our oil changed every 3 months, 3,000 miles, or 5 months and 5,000 miles. So transmission for sure. I don't know if you said it was an all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive or not, but don't forget about your transfer case. Differentials and transfer cases, generally, as a rule of thumb, every 30 to 50,000 miles would be just fine. But I don't worry about the fluid deteriorating with age. Now, the other one that I would say would be the coolant, the Dex-Cool coolant that's in that vehicle. I would be a proponent of changing that. Some may disagree with me, but that stuff left in there too long, I think it goes sour over time. So Anyway, thanks so much for the call, Doug. We are going to go with John on a 2001 Volvo. Go ahead, John. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey, Dave. How are you?
Good. And yourself?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm from North Carolina and transplant out here in Phoenix, Arizona. And my question is, I own a C70 Volvo. And who would you recommend to do the servicing on it?
On a C70 Volvo, and what part of town are you in?
I'm over on the west side.
On the west side. Well,
yeah. Can you recommend anybody, or do your place of business work on a C70 Volvo?
Yeah, C70 Volvo is not anything special that we couldn't service. But if you're on the west side, Dave's Car Care, 51st Avenue in Peoria, do a great job for you in any of the shops. And I would recommend you go to bumpertobumperradio.com. You can hone in a little bit on what's closer to you. Any of the shops on there, if you give them a call, say, hey, do you guys feel comfortable servicing this Volvo? They're going to tell you yes or no. Now, the one thing I'm a huge proponent of is factory fill. And Dave and I have this conversation from time to time. I don't like, Volvo has a fluid, Hyundai has a fluid, Toyota has a fluid. Toyota has 2 fluids. Ford has 3 fluids. Everyone's got a fluid. When we service these late model transmissions, and I'm talking something beyond the year of 2000, we want to put in whatever the factory put in it. Versus there's a lot of companies that say, hey, we got this oil and it works for everything. And I just don't believe it's true. And I do argue with some of my colleagues about this.
Yes, you do.
I do. But we're rebuilding transmissions on a regular basis. We're seeing what fails. And anymore on late model cars, the valve bodies are the biggest failure part in the transmission. And because they have tried to, make the transmission shift as smooth as possible, they make these valves really active. So we want good fluid in there, and we want specifically the right fluid in that thing. So if you're earlier than 2000, it's less a factor, but that's kind of some of the trade-off here for sure.